Welcome to a deep dive. Today we're taking a look at some interesting material from a website, reliefcorner.org.
That's right.
And our goal here is really to unpack what they're doing, understand this model they have for community support. Seems quite unique.
It really does. And I think the main thing, the absolute core of it that jumps out right away from these sources, it's the access they provide to free virtual mental health support.
Free and virtual.
Free and virtual. That's the big headline. And, how they actually manage that is what we need to explore.
Okay, yeah, let's get into that. So the sources describe Relief Corner as a nonprofit, a charitable organization, serving, it says, primarily the Malayali community in the U.S. and beyond, but importantly open to others too.
Right. And their whole purpose, stated very clearly, is offering these mental health services without charging anything. Zero cost.
Yeah, and that free part is underlined by something else quite striking in the source material. It explicitly says, no donations are collected, nor are there any fees charged for services.
Which is, wow. I mean, in today's world, where cost is such a huge barrier to mental health care for so many, that's a massive difference.
It really is. So the immediate question is, how? How is that sustainable?
Exactly. How do you offer professional help, completely free, and not even ask for donations for it?
Well, the sources give us some pointers, some features. They list things like online consultation, so it's accessible from home, it's confidential.
Okay, standard enough for virtual care.
Sure. But then community-based multilingual providers. That points to the specific community focus.
And professional providers, they're qualified, they have experience.
Right, not just anyone. But here's what seems like the linchpin. Dedicated volunteers. It says community members serving fellow members.
Ah, okay. Volunteers.
Plus, it's wellness-centered, looking at the whole person, holistic wellness. And a collaborative initiative, these volunteers are guided by licensed professionals.
So if you put those pieces together, it starts to make a bit more sense, doesn't it? The free aspect seems directly tied to the volunteers and collaboration. They're leveraging skilled people who are willing to give their time, volunteering, but within a structured, professionally guided framework.
So the cost is removed for the user because the input isn't primarily financial. It's human capital, people's time and expertise.
Exactly. Pooling those community resources, that spirit, guided professionally, it sidesteps the usual funding models.
Interesting. A very different way to think about resourcing these kinds of services. Okay, so what kind of support do they actually offer? It seems like quite a range.
Oh, definitely. The sources say they have a variety of programs, all aimed at empowering individuals, families, the whole community.
And it really shows that holistic idea you mentioned earlier.
It does. You've got the more expected things, maybe, like individual counseling for personal stuff.
Right.
Family counseling, tackling marital issues, parenting challenges, other life stuff. Grief counseling, too, for dealing with loss, disability, big life changes.
Standard but essential services.
Yes, but then it branches out. There's something called Vision 2020.
Vision 2020.
Yeah, it's specifically for families where someone has an addiction issue. It includes counseling, but also support groups, weekly meetings, very targeted.
That's quite specific. Addressing a really tough family situation directly.
And then look at this creative arts. Training in music, drawing, painting, crafts.
Alongside counseling?
Apparently so.
Oh.
And coaching, too.
Huh?
Guiding people, to find their potential, reach goals, enhance skills.
That's broad. Arts and coaching aren't what you typically see bundled with mental health support?
Not usually, no. And there's more. A check-in service.
Check-in.
Yeah, regular virtual check-ins for people feeling lonely, depressed, anxious. And they specifically mention nuclear families. It feels like a response to sort of modern isolation.
Very practical. And proactive, almost.
Seems like it. They also do community awareness work, trying to reduce that stigma around mental health. Encourage people to actually seek help, which is crucial, right?
Absolutely. Breaking down those cultural barriers.
And something very practical again. A free English-speaking course. Practice sessions with experienced teachers.
Oh, wow. That could be incredibly helpful for integration, for reducing isolation for newcomers.
Exactly. And finally, a dedicated women's support group, specifically for Malayali women going through divorce or separation. Confidential, peer support.
So when you look at that whole list, it's really comprehensive. It's not just therapy in a vacuum.
Not at all. It feels like they understand support means different things. Sometimes it's clinical help, sometimes it's a skill, sometimes it's connection, sometimes it's tackling a specific life crisis like addiction or divorce.
It really paints a picture of community-level holistic care. So, okay, if someone listening thinks this sounds useful, how do they actually connect the process?
Well, again, it's all online, audio, video, text, chat tools, and free. Always free.
And accessing it.
Seems pretty straightforward from the source. There's a chat button you click first that connects you with the specialist, maybe for initial questions, or you can leave a message.
And volunteers get back to you?
As soon as possible, it says. Or, if you're ready to schedule something specific, there's an appointment button for that. Designed for easy entry, it seems.
Makes sense. And the people providing the help. We touched on volunteers, but what do the sources say about them specifically?
They're described as compassionate community members, yes, but also experienced and licensed in their fields.
Licensed, so not just well-meaning amateur.
No, experienced, qualified. But the key is they are volunteers, driven by passion and commitment, it sounds like.
Okay, so who are some of these people? Does the source name anyone?
It does, and this is where you see that blend of backgrounds. They mention Dr. Saji Matai.
Okay.
He has a PhD in clinical pastoral counseling, is a licensed counselor. His areas include personal couple, family counseling, life coaching, addiction, even motivational speaking.
Clinical pastoral counseling?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Suggests an ability to integrate maybe faith or cultural perspectives if needed.
Could be, yeah. Very relevant for a community-focused service.
Yeah.
Then there's Dr. Thomas P. Matthew, M.A. in psychology, M.Ed in community counseling, D.Min in biblical studies, and, get this, over 30 years experience at a juvenile court.
Wow, okay, so deep experience in social work, community counseling, especially with younger people.
Exactly. And Sister Dr. Joan Chinkapura, MMS PhD in clinical psychology.
Another PhD?
Yes, specializing in addiction treatment, family therapy, advanced psychotherapies. She's worked at an integrated rehab center for addicts, so real clinical depth there.
Definitely.
And then, very significantly, they also list Ike Thomas.
And his background.
It mentions witnessing, Alcoholics Anonymous, and crucially, his own personal journey, immigration, addiction, and recovery.
Ah, so lived experience, someone who's been through it.
Precisely. So you have this mix. Licensed clinical psychologists, pastoral counselors, community counselors, social workers, and someone bringing that vital perspective of lived experience and recovery.
And all volunteering within this structure.
Guided by licensed professionals, yeah.
Yep.
That diverse team, contributing their time and skills,
Yeah.
that's likely the engine making this whole free, comprehensive service model possible. It's a really smart pooling of community talent.
It really is. So bringing it back to you, the listener, why should this matter to you? Why did we do this deep dive? Well, the impact seems pretty clear from the testimonials included in the source material.
Oh, yeah, the testimonials are quite powerful. They give you a real sense of the difference it makes.
People talking about relief from anxiety, building better self-esteem, figuring out relationships, handling stress, processing grief.
They mention specific names, like Pooja learning coping skills online, Rohit feeling more confident, Naomi getting insights into her relationships,
Ram learning about life balance and prioritizing, an anonymous user finding a safe space to heal from grief at their own pace.
It shows the practical, real-world benefits, the convenience of online sessions, feeling safe, learning specific skills, gaining self-awareness, all things people got from this service.
And I think the key takeaway for you listening is that this shows effective professional support can exist outside the typical, often expensive frameworks we usually encounter.
Absolutely. It demonstrates a viable alternative,
Yeah.
a community-driven model that uses technology and, well, human generosity and expertise to deliver vital help.
It shows what's possible when you leverage community resources differently.
Right. It suggests we shouldn't assume that high costs and long waits are the only way for mental health support.
So, to wrap up our exploration of the Reliefcorner.org sources, we've seen a compelling picture of free, confidential, virtual mental health and wellness services.
Yeah, powered by this really interesting blend of professional volunteers and dedicated community members, it seems purpose-built to overcome common barriers to getting help.
Access, cost, stigma. They seem to be tackling all of those.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with, something sparked by looking at this model. Just consider the potential. If you could pool professional skills and community dedication like this to provide essential mental health support completely free, what else could that model be applied to? Think about other areas where access and cost are huge problems. Maybe certain types of education, basic legal advice, other social supports. What could happen if communities started organizing their own expertise like this in other fields?
That's a really powerful question to ponder. What is possible with this kind of collaborative, volunteer-driven approach? Something to think about.
Definitely.
And on that note, that concludes our deep dive for today.